is this handy dandy little formula to solve for the roots or the zeros of the function. They do them. It's a formula. You plop the stuff in, life's good, and it pushes out the x-intercepts. I'm going to tell you, you guys are all going to love this formula right away. But if you're half decent at factoring, if something can be factored, factoring will be easier for you. I very rarely use the quadratic formula unless I really, really need to. Okay, so here's the quadratic formula. Do you want me to close the blinds? Always one blind that I can close. Always one. Yep. Sure you can. They're up at the front. Anytime if you guys don't have a book, chances are I've got them up at the front on this bookcase. It's actually two formulas worked into one. As mathematicians, we are efficient. We are not lazy. Well, Aaron, you are also in that group of not having them? What do you need? Can you wait till after lesson?
Yeah.
I would hate for you to miss how we use the formula.
Yeah.
Just wait for a few and then you can beetle off and go talk to that teacher. No. Okay, so I wrote the formula before with the plus minus in there. And what it just means is it's really two formulas. You're going to have, this would be for one x-intercept, this would be for the other. So the only thing that's different in them is one's an add, one's a subtract. So we just write it as a plus minus. And I'll show you the step where you have to break them apart. And it's not until like the very end. So we usually leave it as a plus minus. So it is two formulas in one. You can use it to find a factorable one. No big deal, we can do that. So let's do example one. We can do it by factoring. What are the factors in negative 20 that add up to a negative 1? 5 and 4. Which one's negative, which one's positive? 5 is negative. And I'm not showing all my steps. I'm not showing the add 5 to both sides. I think that's something, as we were working with one-step algebra, it is something we probably did in grade 9, but I don't feel like we need to do it here. If you are still not sure, definitely do that. Show that step if it helps your brain. So that was pretty easy. This is what I mean by factoring. Sometimes if it's obvious to you, using factoring is much faster. So now we're going to do it with the quadratic formula. So looking at this, we know that A is 1, B is negative 1, and C is negative 20. So A is the coefficient in front here, and it's an invisible 1. This one's an invisible kind of negative 1, and this C is the 20. And I always like to write them out. Helps me put it in the formula. So the formula is x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That formula will be given to you all the way through to grade 12. Did you guys hear the good news? I don't know if it's good news or bad news. I don't know how you feel about it. Provincial exams, but you guys know you still have an exam, right? But it's just, will be teacher made instead of province made? Is that less intimidating or more intimidating? So grade 12 provincials, the kids who took grade 12 pre-cal this semester with me, well, last semester with me, we had to write a provincial exam. It's an exam created by the province. There's a really specific way you have to mark it. Now the province has given us, said this will be the last year for them, and they're going in a new direction. So you guys won't have provincial exams next year, which means you will have a school exam. So do what you will with that information. I don't know if it's good or bad.
Not for everything or just
Math and English were the only two who had provincial exams. Oh, and Francais, yeah, you are correct. Okay, so let's fill in this formula with stuff that we know. Okay, it's a negative b. If my b is negative, what is it in the formula?
positive.
It's a positive. Under the bracket, though, we use the negative b. Anybody know what the square root of 81 is? Hopefully it's 9. Okay, so now we're going to do some math. Or do you need a minute just to catch up with me? Okay, sorry, I just get excited. So this is the step where it's going to split into 2. And I've left myself no room, which is awesome. So do you guys know order of operation applies to fractions? If there's anything to be done on the numerator, do that first. Okay, and now the other option is 1 minus 9, so that's going to leave me with x equals negative 8 divided by 2. Like I said, I left myself no room. I hope you guys did better than I did.
So we don't flip signs in this one.
Don't flip signs?
Like, in the fraction, we write these differently. Like, if it's positive, it's
Right. No, these are just, you're solving it straight up for it. Like, there are some super handy, just gonna throw my phone under here for a second. There's all kinds of things on here, like resources. The quadratic formula solver that I have it's nice, but it doesn't show you the steps, but it's handy to tell you if you have the right answer. Again, I really believe in using apps and things to help us along, but it's not a replacement for doing your work. This to me is a checker. So my A was 1, my B was -1, and my C was -20. So I can just type in those A, B, C coefficients, and then I ask it to solve the equation. It's telling me my first x-intercept is 5, my second x-intercept is -4, and my discriminant is 81, and discriminant is tomorrow, and it breaks it down into factors for me. So I found that super helpful. I use it, if somebody wants to know if something's factorable, I'll pop it in really quickly into my quadratic solver. There's all kinds of options out there for different ones. This one was free, and it does all the things I need to. So that's the one I use to make it go a little bit faster. Like I said, that was an awful lot of math to do for something we solved in 2 lines with factoring. I'm comfortable with factoring. Some people might not be, so this may just be a godsend because you're really good at algebra. I will point out to you though, this is a mistake that I see happen all the time. This stuff has to happen first. Like, you need to put that in your calculator. You need to do this in your calculator first, get that 10, and then divide by 2. Like, the whole equation is over 2. Lots of people were taking what's under the root sign, like the 81, and dividing it by 2. So 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, add 1 is 5.5, and you're not correct. Like, it's completely all over 2. Like, the whole numerator, this is the denominator for everything on top. It's not just a part of it. Okay, let's see how well we did this. I would like you to do this with the quadratic formula. Kasia, if you need to go, you're more than welcome to. Because we've got 5 examples to get through, 4 more examples to get through.
I think I'll just wait until they're done.
Okay. All right, I've frozen my screen. Maybe I shouldn't have. What's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my A, B, and C. So my A in this one is 2, my B is -10, and my C is +11. And I always do that to start, just because it sets me straight for what I have to input into the quadratic formula. So I'm going to freeze now, and you guys can keep going. You're going to need your calculator on this one, just FYI. You gotta invest in life.
I know.
Gotta invest. We found those ones on Amazon for like $10. They were on like some sort of crazy blowout sale.
Oh, okay.
So keep an eye on Amazon. Walmart has a couple. I'm gonna unfreeze. Oh, you guys tell me the answers. Okay, what's your question? Do you want me to come there? Do you want to ask it out loud?
When there's, do you times, like when you have 4AC, do you times the A by the C, and then by the 4 by the A, and then by the C?
Great thing about multiplying is it doesn't matter what order you do it in. Because 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 11 is 88. If I go 2 times 11, that's 22. 22 times 4 is also 88. Multiplication's good like that. Okay, I'm going to show you what I got to this point, and then we're going to talk about putting it into our calculator so we get the correct answer. 3 times 3. There's no 3s.
Oh, I was wondering if 12 was just
We can reduce it. It would be 4 root 2. No, it would be 4 root 3.
4 point.
No, it would be 2 root 3. 2 root 3. Let me get my math right. Yeah.
Why does it change when I put, like, I just did negative 10, and then I put square without the brackets, it gave me negative 100. Why does the
So-
brackets change it?
That's a great question. So when you're doing brackets, if you put this into your calculator, what your calculator is doing is saying, oh, the squared's only on the 10. So I'm going to hold that negative out there like it's a negative 1, and I'm going to square the 10, and that's 100, and then I'll multiply them. If you want your calculator to use the negative 10, you got to put your brackets in there, because now it's like, oh, negative 10 is my base. And you'd get the positive 100 with that. Okay, so I want to take this opportunity to talk about calculators. And I want to talk about rounding. So, ladies and gentlemen, we should only ever round in our final answer. We should be using all decimal places up until our final answer. If you round too early, like if I do the square root of 12, you're going to get a big long decimal. But if you only use 2 places of that, we're going to end up with different answers in the end. And that's a rounding error. And these are the communication errors on the provincial exam. Half mark for rounding. Okay, so let's do this in our calculator. And we're going to do it fairly well. If you want to use brackets, in my calculator, I can put the whole thing in as long as I use my bracket buttons. But if you don't want to use brackets, that's okay too. We just got to hit the equal sign in between. So I'm going to do 10 plus square root of 12. Now, I don't know if your calculators can do this okay. Maybe try it and see what happens. And you should get an answer of 13.46410,162. Okay? So notice I hit equal. I did that, so what I did was I evaluated that numerator. And now I'm just going to say divide by, and as soon as I click the divide by button, it brings up my answer from the previous line. Lots of calculators automatically do this. So all I did was put this in, hit the equal, and then I hit the divide button. I didn't put anything fancy. I hit the divide button. And then I'm going to say divide by 4, and I get 3.36. So now we're going to round it to 2 decimal places. So this one, x is going to be equal to 3.37. Does your calculator do that? If you hit the divide button, it will take the answer from the line above. So this is my suggestion to you. If you are planning on continuing in pre-cal, in some sort of mathy stuff in university, it doesn't have to be a true math course. It could be stats, it could be calculus, it could be biology or chem or things like that. Get a calculator that you're going to keep and follow you through so you know how to use that particular calculator really, really well. Okay, so the next one. If you want to do it all in one step, I got to do my brackets. So 10 minus the square root of 12. I got to get out from under the root sign, close my bracket, divide by 4, and I can go right to the answer. Like my calculator's okay if I do those brackets. Oops. And I would say that these would be the steps that I would show me. I would leave it as a radical, and then I do everything in my calculator and just show me the decimal. I mean, you can write down all the decimal places, but you don't have to. Like, why write it down? Just let your calculator do the work for you. Only if you know how to use your calculator will only be as good as the user, though, right? Like, you need to make sure you're dealing with the numerator first, because if you do this in your calculator, 10 minus root 12, and then I say divide by 4, all it's going to divide by 4 is the root 12, and I'll get a completely wrong answer. This is incorrect. This is correct. Incorrect. Because I didn't use brackets here. All it was taking was that root 12 and dividing it by 4. So you need to know how to use your calculator. It's a great tool, but it can be a disaster if you're not confident with it. No, we don't. No sig figs. Take a big deep breath. You don't have to worry about them. Life's great. Okay, example number 3. This one's a little different. Did anybody have any questions about this? Everybody good with that? Like everybody got to the rooted part? Fine? Okay. A is 1. What's B? Do we have an X? Because remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So there is no term that has just a single x in it. So we would say the b value is 0, because there is no term here. Oh, it's a chain rule today. That's gonna be tough. Okay. So x equals, and we're not gonna say -0. Okay, that's bad grammar. If you do put -0, you're not wrong. It's just bad grammar. Okay, can I take the square root of -20? Mine tells me, nope, it's an error. It tells me actually what the problem is. It says it's not a real number. You cannot take the square root of 20 because there are no two numbers that will multiply to a negative that are exactly the same. Like, that's what a square root is that they're the exact same factors. And this one won't. So, which way does this graph open? Up? Where's the vertex? You need two values. Where's the vertex? What's your b value? 0. 0 divided by 2. Substitute 0 in. Because we know our x value. Right? So that's my vertex. So if I were to graph this, this has a vertex here, and it opens up. How many x-intercepts do I have? None. And this just proved it mathematically that there's no x-intercepts. So that's what I like to use my quadratic solver for a lot of the times, is if somebody says, Miss Scallion, this is not factorable. I'll be like, maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's like that 1B question. And I put it in my quadratic solver and I found the decimal answers are terrible. And you guys wouldn't know how to answer that until today. Okay, next one's all you. And we will round to 2 decimal places in your final answer. Okay, I'm going to show you my answers. Did we get it?
Yeah.
Kinda, sorta? Okay. If you didn't get it, I think the biggest, like, not getting it, I mean, this is the first time you're seeing it, so if you didn't get it, no big deal. But where is it that you made your mistake? And can you fix it and does it make sense? Like, it's no big deal not to get this on your first try. But obviously this one we wouldn't factor. Like the numbers aren't nice. It's not a third, it's not a half, it's like 0.59, which is a terrible number. So we really do rely on our quadratic. I also want to point out, and I need to change my notes to reflect this, whatever this letter is here should be the thing that you're solving for. And oftentimes in the quadratic formula, we'll just say x equals. But if these were a's in here, then it should be a equals. So this variable and this variable should match. The one that's in the equation, those two things should match. We're using all x's, not the end of the world, but people get freaked out when I put t equals. But if that's the variable in the quadratic, then that's what I'm using. Okay, one last one, and then you're done. Well, you're not done with this forever. We'll use this all the time. Okay. We'll do it together. Or do you guys want to try it? Okay, you guys try it. I will be here doing math. And we'll go 2 decimal places again. All right, I'm going to show you my math. And if I'm going too fast, I apologize. Take your time. Is your rounding correct? Do you have 2 decimal places represented there? Some people might just put the 3.9 down on the page, but it really needs to be 3.90 because I've asked you to round to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places have to be represented. So many rules. And that's the math on my calculator. Like I did the 6 plus root 92, got the 15.91, divide by 4, got the 3.897. Yeah.
I got no x-intercepts. It was like -20, square root of -20.
It was like that one?
Yeah.
So,
I'm kinda confused.
oh, you're right. Because, oh, no, it should be a -7. I just didn't write it down. I did the math right. This should be a -7 in here. So if you have, and I rate it as a plus, this would be 36 subtract -56. They're a different building. We're all good. We'll be fine. It's all good. Yeah, no, sorry, I should have written it down this way before, but this subtract sign gets carried down to here, and then I've got 4 times 2, which is a +8. +8 times by a -7 gives me a -56, and when we subtract a negative number, it just is the action of adding. So we should get 92.
Oh,
Does that make sort of sense? Does that make, like, I'm just carrying down the subtract sign.
yeah, I just
To-
forgot the.
And I forgot to write it in too. You're absolutely right. I see, you get lazy on these things and it gets confusing. But it is a -7 for C, so this should be -7, which would make this a -56. This becomes an add. Okay. Welcome to Quadratic Formula. It's supposed to make your life easier. A little bit. Don't have to factor anymore. But that is stinky. Factoring does make things go faster when it's easily factorable. Okay, that's it for this lesson. This will